Hi, it's Jan Howell from YouMakeItSimple.com. I have been getting a lot of people asking how to add batting to my self-binding blanket. These self-binding blankets are really fun to make up. They're usually just made up with 2 pieces of flannel fabric without any batting. But if you want to add a little bit more warmth or fluffiness to the blanket, it is possible to add some batting. And in this quick tutorial, I'm going to show you how easy it is to do. Just like the other blankets, you can make them any size. But for this tutorial, I'm going to show you just a mini size blanket so you can get an overall better view of how it's done. We'll go over the measurements in just a minute. Let's go over the other items and things that you'll need. You'll need to decide if you want to use a cotton batting or a polyester batting. And they both have different kind of feels to them, and you can get them in different weights. I'm going to demo with a cotton batting. You'll need pins or fabric clips. I love using a rotary cutter and a ruler, but you can also just use a pair of fabric scissors. You'll need 2 safety pins, some kind of marking device. I really like these disappearing erasable pens that erase when you put heat on them, a seam gauge or measuring tape, a cute label if you want to add a label, a ruler with a right angle marking, or you can just use a regular sheet of paper and a regular ruler, a needle and thread, and a contrasting color of thread, and your iron and ironing board, and of course your sewing machine. So I'm not going to go over all the tips and things about cutting out your fabric. I'll put the description for that tutorial in the link below. So I'm just going to go over the basics in this tutorial. So once you figure out how big you want your blanket to be, you're going to subtract 5 inches from that measurement, and that is what the center fabric piece is going to be. So for this tutorial, my center fabric piece is only going to be 13 by 16 inches. So the next thing to measure is your batting piece, and the batting piece is going to be 5 inches bigger than that center piece. So my batting piece is going to be 18 by 21 inches. And your backside piece, which is going to be the binding piece, so this back piece is going to be 23 by 26 inches. Follow the details on the other video for tips on cutting your fabric out, and we'll proceed with how to put this together. So it's really important that you determine and locate the selvage edge of the fabric, which is the finished edge of the fabric and not the cut edge. The selvage edge will not stretch. The cut edge is going to have a little give to it. And it's really important that we keep those straight when we're putting the blanket together, or else you'll have twisting and the blanket will not lay properly. So I have cut off, so this piece, the selvage edge looked like this. It had printing on it, and I have just cut that off and cut my piece to the correct size. I'm going to put a safety pin just to help me remember on that side that is the selvage edge. And I'll do that with this piece as well. So these 2 ends are the selvage edge and cut edge. First thing you're going to do is fold the fabric in half on all sides. Find the halfway mark and mark it with a pin. The next thing to do is to take the batting, and we're going to place it on top of the wrong side of the back piece and just center it. So that should be about 2.5 inches from the edge. and that's good. Put several pins in place to hold that while we baste it together. I'm going to use a black thread just so I can see it real easily and it'll be easy to remove. Just going to double thread it, and you don't even really need to knot it. Just going to take big running stitches just all the way around. That should do it. Flip it over so the right side is facing out, and take the inner piece and place it right side facing down. Selvage edge, selvage edge. Make sure that you're lining those up and line up the center points and pin in place. Before we go any further, take your pen and measure 1/4 inch from each corner edge of the top piece. So if you want to double check and make sure that you're centered, just measure this point. So that's 5 inches, which is what it's supposed to be. And that should measure 5 inches as well. And same with each side. If you have a bigger blanket, it might be a little bit more crucial to do that. That might be a little off. And see, that is off. So somehow those center points got shifted a little bit. We want to make sure that that is centered. That's better. So that would have affected my corners. They would have turned out skiwampus and not laying correctly. We're going to sew this selvage edge first and then the other selvaged edge. And we're going to start sewing from the center out. And the reason you do that is just to keep everything nice and even and smooth. But you're only going to sew to that stopping point that we put with the pen. Don't go any further. We want to stop at that 1/4 inch point and then bring it back here and sew down to that stopping point. We're going to do that for all sides, but we're going to do this side, these two sides first, and then do these other two sides. I'm using a 1/4 inch seam allowance, and I'm going to back stitch at the beginning and the end of my seams. So just to know where that line is on the other side, I'm just going to put my pin there. You're going to leave about a 6-inch opening so that you can turn it inside out. So instead of starting from the center point, I'm going to come down about a couple inches on each side. So that is what it'll look like after you've sewn the sides, and I've left that opening. I'm going to flatten that out, and at this point just take your scissors and cut off the excess. So we want the batting to be the size of the folded edge here. Make sure that you're not cutting the fabric. So to make the mitered corners, take the blanket and bring the top side edges together so the back piece is showing. Just make sure that that is lined up and flatten it out and it's coming to a nice point. That shows you that we've sewn it correctly. with the folded edge facing away from you, take your right edge, and this ruler is really nice because it has a right angle on it here. You can also just use a piece of paper, but what we want to do is bring that flat edge of the paper or the ruler and line it up with the end of the sewing point. So let me just mark that so you can see that's where we ended and backstitched. So that is where I'm lining up that ruler flat edge and then bringing the edge of the ruler to that point. And then I'm going to trace a line just to the sewing, just to the seam. Don't cut it off yet, but that's where we're going to be sewing, is right there. So I'm going to pin that in place and do that with all 4 corners. We'll take it to the sewing machine and sew all 4 corners. Now, before you cut anything, find your opening and just take one of those corners and poke it out and see if that is correct, and which it is. So now we'll cut. We'll trim all the corners using, just leaving a 1/4 inch seam allowance. Now just put your hand inside and turn it inside out. You can remove your safety pins. And just take a turning stick or the eraser end of a pencil and poke out the corners. And make sure the batting is going all the way to the edge. Let's give it a good shake. Oh, it's looking cute. So now you can go ahead and pull out your basting stitches. And that should come out really easy. And now we'll just do a little pressing, add our tag, and top stitch. I've had some people tell me that they save these and use them to make quilts with. Just kind of make sure that that's the seam allowance is going towards the binding, and give it a good press. So this edge that we left open, fold the cut edge under 1/4 inch and press it, and then pin it in place. I usually add the tag if I'm putting one in the seam, but you can still add it at this point by just placing it inside that seam allowance there, and we'll catch it when we top stitch. You might want to just add a few pins. So there's several ways you can top stitch. You can use a fancy stitch on your machine. You can just use a straight stitch, a blanket stitch. There's all different kind of fun ways to embellish your blanket edge. I have chosen a cute blanket stitch to do around this blanket, especially because it's such a small blanket. But you can just do a straight stitch if you want. So obviously, if this were a bigger blanket, you would want to tie the quilt or do some sewing machine quilting. You can use your tape method, making those lines with tape and sewing on the edge, or just do some random cute stitching, free sewing. So there you have some added batting to your mitered corner blankets. Thanks so much for watching. Thanks for your comments. Thanks for your questions. Please reach out if you do have questions. And let me know in the comments below if there's anything that you want me to do a tutorial on. I'll put the link in the description below where you can find the pattern if you want to print out some written instructions. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Click on the bell so you can be notified, and we'll see you next time.